Sunday, February 1st, 2026. Welcome back to the deep dive. It's happening all around us. It's on your screen. It's definitely happening in your brain. And maybe most importantly, it's happening right now in these, massive, quiet server rooms in Silicon Valley.
It really is. Today, we are looking at a collision, a massive intersection of biology, pop culture, and some seriously predictive technology.
I mean, it's a perfect storm, right? You have this ancient wiring, our evolutionary psychology, the hardware we've had for literally 100,000 years, and it's just crashing headfirst into advanced machine learning.
Absolutely. And honestly, if you're not paying close attention, you might think we're just talking about a new dating show. Who's dating whom?
Ugh.
But it is so much deeper than that.
And the catalyst for this entire deep dive, it's a reality TV show, but, and I think this is the key, to call it just a reality show is, well, it's missing the point entirely.
Completely. It's not just a show. It's a data point. It's a mirror being held up to us.
So, here is the mission for today's deep dive. We've gone through a whole stack of research, everything from Netflix's own internal engineering papers to sociological studies from places like Purdue University and Psychology Today. And we are going to connect three dots that, frankly, usually stay in their own separate silos.
They really do. People who talk about algorithms rarely talk about evolutionary psychology.
Exactly. So first, we're going to look at what people are calling the baby girl effect and why the psychology of dating, specifically older women dating younger men, seems to be fundamentally shifting right now.
We're going to really try and dismantle that old cougar stereotype.
Yeah.
And we're going to do it with hard data. We're going to ask if that word even belongs in our vocabulary anymore.
Then second, we're digging into the biology, the deep, deep science. Why are we as a species wired to care so much about age gaps? And more importantly, why are we suddenly starting to override that ancient programming? This is the nature versus nurture debate, but on steroids.
It really is. It's culture versus code.
And third, and this is the part that I'm not going to lie, it genuinely unnerved me a little bit, we're going to look at the algorithm. We'll explain exactly how Netflix's in-session adapted recommendations knew you wanted to watch this kind of content before you even knew you wanted to, before you even typed a single letter into the search bar?
That technology is the hidden hand in all of this. It's fascinating, it's brilliant, and it is a little dystopian. You're right about that.
So by the end of this, you're going to understand not just the future of dating, but the future of how your own mind is being read and maybe even shaped by the platforms you use every single day. Let's get into it.
Let's dive in.
Okay, so we have to start with the immediate cultural moment, the hook that's got everyone talking. Next month, March 2026, Netflix is dropping a show called Age of Attraction. Now, I have gone through the press release, all the exclusive coverage from places like Buzz with Riz and People magazine.
And on the surface, it looks pretty standard, right?
Totally. It looks like your classic dating show. Big villa, attractive singles, drama. But if you look at how they're framing this, the language they're using, it's very, very specific. They are not calling it a dating competition.
No, they're calling it a social experiment.
It's a social experiment, which is, that's a brilliant marketing pivot, isn't it?
It's genius because it immediately gives the viewer permission to watch without feeling like they're just consuming, trash TV. If you frame it as an experiment, suddenly the viewer isn't a voyeur. They're an amateur anthropologist. You're participating in research from your couch.
Exactly. You feel smart watching it.
Okay.
So let's break down the premise because it's deceptively simple, but it is so specifically designed to break down a very particular barrier.
Like?
You have a group of singles. The age range is huge. The youngest is 22 and the oldest is 59. They're all put into this typical dating environment, a beautiful resort, of course. But here is the central catch. They are forbidden from revealing their ages.
No numbers allowed at all.
Zero. No birth years. No, oh, I graduated in the class. No, I remember when the song first came out. None of that. They are forced to date based strictly on, emotional connection, shared values, communication styles.
So they're testing a very specific hypothesis.
The hypothesis they're testing, or at least the one they're selling in their branding, is whether love is actually ageless. Or if we are just so deeply conditioned by society to, stay in our chronological lanes.
It's basically the love is blind mechanic.
Right.
But instead of hiding appearances, they're hiding age. And frankly, age is a much more contentious variable.
How so?
Well, we've seen shows hide looks. We've seen them hide financial status. But age. Age carries a different kind of weight. It's not just about preference. It's tied to our deep-seated ideas about power, fertility, status, and even mortality.
It carries biology with it.
Yeah.
And to really hammer home that this experiment is valid, to make it feel real,
Yeah.
they cast Nick Viall and Natalie Joy as the hosts.
Which is not a subtle choice.
Not at all. It's about as subtle as a billboard. For anyone who doesn't follow this stuff, Nick Viall is a veteran of the Bachelor franchise. He's currently 45. His wife, Natalie Joy, is 27.
That's an 18-year age gap.
An 18-year gap. They're a real-life married couple. They have a child together. Their very physical presence on that set is a constant living signal to the audience that says, look, this works. This is normal. Look at us.
It provides immediate legitimacy to the whole premise. If you had some generic, game show host reading off cue cards, the whole thing would feel like a cheap gimmick.
Totally.
But with Nick and Natalie standing there, it feels more like lifestyle advocacy. It's Netflix saying, we aren't just testing this idea, we are actively endorsing it.
But the trailer, I watched it 3 times, and the tension isn't the usual stuff. It's not the who will they pick drama we're used to. The tension is like this raw existential dread. It is palpable.
It's the fear of breaking the taboo. It's the fear of social judgment made manifest.
Oh, absolutely. There's this one contestant. She's a woman, I'm guessing in her 50s. And she's in a confessional looking right at the camera. You can just see the absolute panic in her eyes. She says, and this is a direct quote, "I don't know if these guys are my age, my dad's age, or my grandpa's age."
And that's the core of it right there. Because normally in the real world, we rely on those visual cues for safety. We use age to categorize people and power dynamics almost instantly.
What do you mean by that?
Well, think about it. When you walk into any room, a party, a business meeting, you are unconsciously scanning. Is that person a peer, an elder, a subordinate, a potential mate, a threat? Age is one of the primary data points we use to make those snap judgments.
So when you remove the number...
When you remove the number
Yeah.
and you mask some of the more obvious visual cues with, great lighting and professional makeup and styling, you completely remove the social script. You take away the safety net. Everyone is just a person. And that's terrifying.
And then there's the kicker quote from the trailer, the one that actually made me pause the video and rewind. A woman, on a date, confesses to the guy right to his face. She says, "In a regular situation, I would probably want to set you up with my 29-year-old daughter."
Wow.
I mean, can you imagine?
That moment right there, that's the whole show. That is the friction point. That is what we call productive discomfort.
Explain that term, productive discomfort.
Productive discomfort is that feeling you get when you're forced to hold 2 completely conflicting ideas in your head at the same time. It creates cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
And that dissonance forces you to examine your own beliefs.
So in that moment, her 2 conflicting truths are...
She's acknowledging the biological and social reality, which is, you are the correct age for my offspring. That's the script she's known her whole life. But she's simultaneously grappling with her immediate, personal, romantic reality, which is, but I am attracted to you right now, in this moment.
And that conflict, that's the drama.
That is incredibly compelling television. It makes the viewer ask themselves, what would I do? Could I ignore the number?
It feels like the show isn't happening in a vacuum, though. It's not just some random idea a producer had in the shower one day. It feels like it's landing at the absolute crest of this massive cultural wave. We've been seeing the term thrown around everywhere lately, the baby girl effect.
Baby girl has become the defining term for this cultural moment. And it's so interesting because baby girl as a term used to be, a somewhat infantilizing pet name for women.
Right, a little condescending.
Very. But now, the internet, as it does, has completely flipped it. It's now almost exclusively applied to men. Often younger men, maybe softer, more emotionally available men, who are presented as the objects of affection for older, or at least more dominant and self-possessed women. It's a complete reevaluation of the entire age gap dynamic.
We saw it with the movie Baby Girl, which I guess gave the trend its name. We definitely saw it with the idea of You, with Anne Hathaway and Nicholas Galitzine.
That movie was huge, a global phenomenon.
And the show Rivals, and in books like Intermezzo and All Fours, it's suddenly just everywhere.
But notice the shift in the framing. This is the crucial part. In the post-Me Too era, we were, and rightfully so, hypervigilant about power dynamics in relationships.
Of course.
The dominant narrative was that large age gaps were inherently predatory. And it was almost always older, powerful men exploiting younger, more vulnerable women.
The Harvey Weinstein dynamic, the casting couch dynamic. That was the lens we saw everything through.
Correct. That was the taboo frame.
Yeah.
It was all about exploitation. But what movies like The Idea of You do is they completely flip that power dynamic on its head. When you have a successful 40-something single mother who owns her own art gallery, who's dating a 24-year-old boy band star.
The woman holds all the cards.
She has the career, she has the money, she has the life experience, the emotional maturity. The younger man in that scenario isn't the predator, and she certainly isn't the prey. He's often the one pursuing her. He's the one trying to keep up.
So the relationship is reframed from predatory to empowerment.
Exactly. It becomes about her agency. It's about a woman choosing pleasure and personal fulfillment rather than just, security or social validation.
Yeah.
It's subverting the old patriarchal script by using the patriarchy's own tool, status, and power, but just reversing the gender roles.
And the data actually backs this up. This isn't just Hollywood screenwriters trying to be edgy and create a new trend. We looked at that big survey from Lilo.
Right, and for context, Olelo is a luxury sex toy brand, but they actually conduct some very rigorous, large-scale sociological polling.
And what did they find?
They polled thousands of their users and found that 82.5% of people have broadened their dating app age filters in the last 12 months alone.
82.5%. That can't be right. That's a seismic shift for a single year. Usually social trends like this move in inches, a percentage point or two a year. It's a mile.
It's a massive, massive change. It implies that almost everyone is, on some level, rethinking their own boundaries. It's not a niche thing anymore.
And did they break it down by gender and age?
They did. And this is where it gets really interesting. They found that 14% of women aged 45 to 55 plus are now explicitly open to dating younger men. That is a significant chunk of that demographic who are actively changing their dating patterns.
And what about on the flip side? What about the younger guys?
On the flip side, 16% of men aged 18 to 24 are explicitly setting their filters to search for older women.
Okay, that 18 to 24 demographic is what really interests me, because the stereotype, the lazy cultural joke, is that these young guys are just looking for a sugar mama or a casual fling, the whole Mrs. Robinson situation.
Right, the transactional relationship.
But you're suggesting the data shows it's something deeper.
The data suggests it's becoming a systemic preference, not just a niche fetish. It points to a curiosity about emotional maturity, about stability, about a different kind of partnership that maybe they aren't finding in their direct peer group.
So to really understand why this feels so disruptive, why a show like Age of Attraction is even necessary, we have to look at the science of why this shouldn't be happening, according to our biology.
Exactly. We have to pivot to the biology. Because if you ask a traditional evolutionary psychologist, this entire baby girl trend makes absolutely zero sense. Our DNA should be screaming against it.
Biologically, it's completely counterintuitive. We pulled a couple of key studies, one from Appalachian State and another from Purdue University, that really outline the traditional human mating strategy. This is the hardware. This is the code that was written on the savannah hundreds of thousands of years ago.
And that code is still running in the background for all of us, whether we like it or not.
Okay, so walk us through the caveman logic then. What does our ancient hardware say we should want in a mate?
So essentially, in the ancestral environment, the name of the game was survival and reproduction. And to achieve that, men and women had very distinct and often different agendas. For men, the primary evolutionary drive was to select for fertility.
To pass on his genes.
To pass on his genes to as many healthy offspring as possible. And because human females don't have a visible estrous cycle like many other animals, there's no obvious sign that says, I am fertile right now, men had to evolve to look for proxies, cues.
And youth is the biggest and most reliable proxy.
Youth is the primary proxy for fertility. Things like smooth skin, physical energy, a certain waist-to-hip ratio. These are all biological billboards that scream, I am healthy and can successfully bear children. So the deep ancient hardwiring says, men should prefer women at their peak reproductive age, which is generally in the early to mid-20s.
Which explains why, as men get older, the preferred age gap often widens. A 50-year-old man isn't, evolutionarily speaking, looking for a 50-year-old womb. He's still scanning for that same fertility marker he was scanning for at 25.
It sounds crude when you say it out loud, but according to the theory, it's accurate. It's why you see the so-called Leonardo DiCaprio effect. Men who consistently date women of a certain age bracket, regardless of their own advancing age. They are, in a sense, stuck in that biological loop.
Okay, so that's the male script. What about for women? What is their evolutionary programming telling them to look for?
For women, the evolutionary driver was completely different. It was all about resource acquisition. Think about it. Pregnancy and child-rearing are incredibly taxing and vulnerable states, especially in a dangerous prehistoric world.
You need protection. You need food.
Need security. A woman needed a partner who could reliably provide food, protection from predators, and shelter. The survival of her and her offspring depended on it.
And older men, generally speaking, have more resources.
Exactly. It takes time to build status in a tribe. It takes time to become the best hunter or the wisest leader. So older men tended to have more status, more resources, and this is a crucial point. They had already proven they could survive. They had good survivability genes. A man who lived to be 35 or 40 in that environment was clearly doing something right.
So the evolutionary logic is women want the provider, men want the fertile partner. And this is what gave us the so-called 3-year rule, right?
The global average, yes. If you look at demographic data across almost all cultures, all religions, all centuries, husbands are, on average, about 3 years older than their wives. That is the statistical baseline. That is what history and biology consider normal.
So if that is the hardware, if that is what's written in our blood and bone, why is the software suddenly changing so dramatically? Why are we seeing this surge in older women and younger men? I mean, are we literally evolving in real time?
We aren't mutating, no, but our environment is changing at a speed our genes can't keep up with. And when the environment changes, behavior has to adapt. We looked at this really fascinating analysis from Mark Travers in Psychology Today that breaks this down perfectly.
What's his argument?
He posits that the software of modern society is finally powerful enough to override the ancient hardware of our biology. And he says the biggest single driver of this change is a fundamental shift in what women seek in a relationship. A shift away from stability and towards self-expansion.
Self-expansion? That sounds a little bit like a self-help buzzword. Let's unpack it. What does that actually mean in this context?
So it comes from the self-expansion model, which was developed by the psychologists Arthur and Elaine Aron. And the core idea is that human beings have this fundamental innate drive to grow. We want to acquire new knowledge, new skills, new perspectives, new identities. We have a deep need to become more than we currently are.
Okay, that makes sense.
But traditionally, and specifically for women, this drive often had to be suppressed or channeled into the family. Women were forced to sacrifice their own expansion for the sake of stability. They needed a provider because the economic and social systems locked them out.
You couldn't be a CEO. You couldn't own property in your own name in many places. You needed a man for your literal survival.
Exactly. Your survival and social standing were tied to his. But now, look at the demographics of a show like Age of Attraction. Look at the character Anne Hathaway plays in the idea of you. These women are financially independent. They are CEOs, artists, homeowners. They have their own robust investment portfolios. They have, in a word, self-supplied stability.
So that old biological alarm bell, the resource acquisition drive, it's finally silent.
It's dormant. They don't need a partner's wallet. And if you take money and security off the table, what do you look for in a partner? You don't look for safety anymore. You look for a spark. You look for someone who can help you expand your own self-concept.
That's a really crucial distinction. If you don't need a protector, you can look for a muse instead.
You can look for vitality, you look for openness, for new experiences, and this is where the age gap becomes an asset, not a liability. An older man, a contemporary, might offer more stability, sure, but he might also be set in his ways, he might be more rigid, less open to new things.
Whereas a younger man
brings new energy. He brings a connection to the current culture, to new music, new ideas. He brings a sense of play, of adventure. He hasn't been hardened by decades of cynicism yet.
He's a portal to a new version of yourself.
Exactly. He becomes a vehicle for self-expansion.
And that leads directly into the second big point from that Psychology Today article, this idea of emotional equity. This one feels like a pretty direct shot at the older generation of men.
It is a bit of a critique, yes, but it's a critique based on observable generational shifts in behavior. The article points out that younger men, millennials, and especially Gen Z, have been raised in a completely different emotional landscape than their fathers and grandfathers.
They're the generation that grew up with feelings charts in kindergarten and mental health awareness assemblies in high school.
They grew up with the concept of emotional intelligence, or EQ, being valued as highly as IQ. They grew up in a world that increasingly prioritizes open communication, vulnerability, and therapy. As a result, they are far more likely to have a sophisticated vocabulary for their own emotions.
As opposed to the classic strong, silent type that was lionized for so long.
Right. The stoic, emotionally constipated archetype. So for an established, successful woman who has maybe spent decades dealing with that I don't talk about my feelings, I am the head of the household kind of man. A younger man can be incredibly refreshing.
He's more of a partner.
He's more likely to support an equal division of household labor. He's not looking for a new mother to clean up after him. He's looking for a true partner. The research shows that this leads to much higher overall relationship satisfaction for the woman.
So, in a weird way, the younger guy is actually the more mature choice when it comes to the actual dynamics of a relationship.
In terms of relational maturity, often yes. The old script said maturity was defined by your bank account. The new script says maturity is defined by your empathy. And on that metric, younger men are often winning.
I love that framing. Maturity is empathy. Okay, there's one more point from that Psychology Today piece that I think is crucial to this whole conversation. The myth of the expiration date.
This is a really powerful one. This is the pervasive, toxic idea that a woman's desirability and her own sense of self-worth fades with age. We've been sold this story for centuries. The whole maid, mother, crone progression. You're desirable until you have kids, and then you're basically invisible until you're a wise old woman.
But the research shows the complete opposite is true.
The research shows that women in midlife, their 40s and 50s, actually peak in terms of what psychologists call identity certainty.
Identity certainty. They finally truly know who they are.
They have grounded self-assurance. They aren't plagued by the insecurities of their 20s. They aren't playing games. They aren't trying to find themselves because they've already done that hard work. They've been through things. They've built a life. And that quiet, unshakable confidence is incredibly magnetic.
Especially to a younger man who might be navigating the chaos of his own 20s.
Exactly. If you're a 25-year-old guy trying to figure out your career, your finances, your place in the world, a woman who is grounded, successful, and decisive is incredibly attractive. She's not a mother figure in the patronizing, caretaking sense. She's an anchor of competence in a stormy sea. She has her life together.
Okay, so when you lay it all out like that, it seems like a perfect match. You have these women who are self-assured, financially free, looking for expansion, and you have these younger men who are emotionally open and are attracted to that powerful confidence. On paper, this works.
On paper, yes. Inside the four walls of the house, yes. But
then you have to walk out the front door.
then you have to face the world. And this is where that Purdue University study highlights a massive and painful contradiction. They call it the paradox of satisfaction.
Right, I found this part of the research so fascinating. The study essentially says these couples are happier, but also more stressed at the same time. How does that even work?
It's a complete split between their internal reality and their external reality. Internally, within the relationship itself, women in age gap relationships with younger men consistently report higher levels of commitment, better communication, and greater sexual satisfaction than women in relationships with older men or men their own age.
Wait, hang on. They are more committed. The stereotype is that it's just a fling, that the guy will eventually leave her for someone his own age.
That's the stereotype, but the data doesn't support it. The leading theory for this is called the equity perspective. Because women in our society traditionally have less social and economic power than men, when a woman is older and more professionally and financially established than her male partner, it balances the scales.
So the age gap and status gap actually neutralize the traditional gender power gap.
Precisely. The relationship becomes more naturally egalitarian. It's not a constant power struggle. It's a genuine partnership of equals. But here's the paradox. Even though the relationship itself is working beautifully on the inside, the pressure they face from the outside world is immense.
This is what the study called perceived marginalization.
Right. And this was the shocking finding. The study showed that age gap couples, specifically older woman, younger man couples, often report significantly higher levels of perceived marginalization, social disapproval, than even interracial or same-sex couples in some studies.
That is wild. More disapproval than for couples that just a generation ago were literally illegal in some places.
And that marginalization is the primary stressor on the relationship. It's not that they don't get along, it's that they constantly feel the world judging them, questioning their legitimacy.
It's the side eye you get at the grocery store. It's the whispers at the family reunion. It's the waiter automatically assuming the guy must be her son and handing her the check.
Exactly. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts. And that brings us right back to the power of labels. Words like cougar, toy boy, gold digger, cradle robber.
Let's talk about cougar for a second. That word has such a specific negative flavor. It's predatory. It implies the woman is the one on the hunt, that she's aggressive.
It does. It's a pejorative through and through. It's designed to frame the woman's sexuality as unnatural and aggressive. Now, compare that to the term for an older man with a younger woman, cradle robber.
Which is often said with a wink and a nudge, like, oh, good for him, he still got it. It's almost a compliment.
Right. It's a high five for the guy and a judgmental side eye for the woman. It's a classic double standard. But what shows like Age of Attraction and cultural trends like the baby girl effect are actively doing is attempting to rebrand that entire dynamic. It's a conscious effort to move the narrative away from predatory and towards desirable.
It's making it aspirational, not shameful.
Yes, and in our media-saturated world, that is a profoundly powerful cultural pivot.
So we've got the biology, we had the shifting sociology. Now let's talk about the vehicle that is delivering all of this to us, reality TV.
The ultimate guilty pleasure.
The Cleveland Clinic actually did an analysis on this, and they call it a mini vacation for the brain. So what is it? Why are we so deeply obsessed with watching a bunch of strangers try to date each other on an island?
It's a lot deeper than just being nosy or wanting to see drama. The insight from the Cleveland Clinic is that reality TV lights up the brain's reward system in a way that's very similar to eating high-calorie, high-fat foods. It's a quick, easy dopamine hit.
So you're saying watching Age of Attraction is the biological equivalent of eating a donut?
From your brain's perspective, yes. But psychologically, it's about something they call vicarious living. It allows us, the viewers, to simulate these high-stakes, what-if scenarios without taking any of the actual risk.
So I get to sit there and ask myself, would I date someone 20 years younger? What would my mom say? Could I handle the stares from strangers? I get to play out all the drama safely from my couch.
You get all the emotional stimulation with none of the real-world consequences. And a show like Age of Attraction seems to be leaning into this idea we mentioned earlier, the one from the Buzz with Riz article, productive discomfort.
I really like that term. It feels very accurate.
It is. It's not just the trashy, low-stakes drama of people throwing wine at each other. This show is designed to force the viewer to actively confront their own biases about age, love, and power.
Right. Unlike a scripted drama where you can just dismiss it by saying, oh, it's just fiction, this is presented as a real social experiment, and Netflix is branding it so carefully.
Very carefully. You notice the visual cues. They use a lot of natural lighting. They avoid the glitzy, overproduced studio look. The camera work focuses on tight shots of facial expressions. They're doing everything they can to make you, the viewer, feel like an anthropologist, not just a peeping Tom.
They want you to feel smart while you're watching it.
Exactly. It's a way to reframe the entire experience. I'm not just rotting my brain with trash TV. I'm studying the nuances of human behavior in a controlled environment.
I'm analyzing the societal implications of age bias in modern dating practices.
Whatever you need to tell yourself to click play.
And speaking of clicking play, this brings us to the part of this deep dive that I am most excited about. And honestly, it's the part that is, as you said, a little scary. The algorithm.
This is where the curtain really gets pulled back.
Because look, Netflix did not just spend tens of millions of dollars producing a show about age gaps because they had a good hunch. They didn't just guess that this was a topic people were interested in. They knew. They had the data. They knew we wanted this.
They knew before we knew.
So we managed to find this pretty dense technical paper published by the Netflix Research Division. It's titled, get this, Augmenting Netflix Search with In-Session Adapted Recommendations.
Sounds like a real page-turner.
I know, right? But the content inside is absolutely mind-blowing. It explains how they made the leap from what they call historical recommendations to in-session adaptation.
And this is a huge, huge shift in recommendation technology. For years, all recommendation engines were history-based. The logic was simple. You watched a lot of romantic comedies last month. Here are some more romantic comedies. You watched The Crown. Okay, here's another historical period drama.
Which makes logical sense. Past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior.
It is, but it's a very blunt instrument. It's flawed. Because human beings are moody. We're inconsistent. Just because I was on a kick watching documentaries about WWII last week doesn't mean I want to watch one tonight. Maybe tonight I had a terrible day at work. My boss yelled at me, and I just want to watch a mindless baking competition. I want comfort, not education.
Right. The historical data has a lag. It's looking at who I was last week, not who I am right now.
Exactly. So Netflix invested heavily in developing in-session adapted recommendations. The goal is to analyze your intent, your mood, in real time from the second you open the app. They're trying to figure out, who is this user tonight?
So how does that actually work on a technical level? Let's break it down for someone who's not an engineer.
It relies on what they call just-in-time, or JIT, server requests. So imagine you log into Netflix. The first thing you do is click on a Korean drama. You watch the trailer for maybe 15 seconds, then you hit the back button, then you hover your mouse over a horror movie. You don't click, you just hover. Then you click on a sci-fi action movie and read the full description. You scroll down to see the cast list.
Okay, a pretty typical browsing session.
To you, it is. To the algorithm, you are feeling it a stream of data points, your click stream. And it's watching that sequence, and it's not just seeing titles, it's interpreting intent. It's thinking, okay, the user clicked on two genres they don't normally watch. They're backing out of things quickly. They're exploring. They aren't looking for something familiar and comfortable. They are in explorer mode. They are looking for something new. They are looking for a thrill. They want tension.
And it does this instantly, like in the milliseconds I'm browsing.
Instantly. While you are scrolling down the page, the server is grabbing that click stream data from the last few seconds and completely re-ranking the entire homepage before you even scroll down to the next row of recommendations.
That's wild. So the homepage I see when I first log in is different from the homepage I see 30 seconds later. It's not static. It's alive. It's breathing.
It's adapting to you in real time. They call the end goal anticipatory search. They're trying to predict what you would search for before you have the conscious thought to type a single letter. They want to serve you the thing you want before you know you want it.
That explains so much. You know that feeling when you're scrolling and you think to yourself, you know, I'm kind of in the mood for a cheesy rom-com. And then you scroll down and boom, there's a whole row of them. It feels like the app is reading your mind.
It's not reading your mind, it's reading your behavior, which is a very accurate proxy for your mind. And it's not just what you click on, it's how you look at the screen.
Okay, this brings us to the neuromarketing aspect. We found a source from an analyst named Jack Willoughby who writes about how Netflix uses eye tracking in its research.
This is where it gets even more granular and, frankly, a bit creepy.
Yeah.
In their research labs, they run studies where they use high-tech cameras to track exactly where a user's eyes fall on a thumbnail image. For how many milliseconds? In what order?
So they know if my eye is drawn to the title first, or the main actor's face,
Or the color red in the corner, or the hint of an explosion in the background, or the gun on the table. They know with scientific precision what visual elements draw the human eye. And they use that data to A/B test all of their visuals on a massive scale.
A/B testing, so like they test two different versions to see which is better.
Not two versions. They might have 20 or 100. For a huge show like Age of Attraction, they don't just have one poster image. They have dozens, each designed to appeal to a different psychological profile.
Wait a minute, so you're saying the poster I see for a show on my Netflix account might be completely different than the poster you see for the exact same show?
Almost certainly. Let's say the algorithm knows from your history that you've been watching a lot of romance and soft dramas. So for you, it shows you a thumbnail for Age of Attraction that highlights emotional intimacy. A picture of two people looking deeply into each other's eyes, soft lighting, maybe a warm sunset color palette. It's selling you the love story.
Okay, that makes sense.
But for me, maybe the algorithm knows I've been watching a lot of reality competition shows and thrillers. So for me, it serves up a poster that looks much more dramatic. High contrast lighting. A tight close-up of a single contestant looking shocked or crying. It's selling me the conflict.
So we are both being recommended the same show, but we were sold two completely different stories to get us to click that play button.
Exactly. They are tailoring the hook to your specific data-proven psychological profile. And they use color psychology, too. The source mentioned that the specific shade of red used in the Netflix UI isn't an accident. It's designed to create a sense of urgency. It triggers a physiological state of alertness in the brain.
And the source also mentioned emotion detection.
Yes, this is for pilot testing and focus groups. They have software that can analyze the facial expressions of viewers as they watch a new show. It can map, second by second, when you smile, when you frown, when your eyes widen in surprise, when you look bored. They can literally map the emotional journey of an episode to ensure the hooks and cliffhangers land with maximum impact.
So let's bring this all back to Age of Attraction. How does all of this incredibly sophisticated tech end up serving the baby girl trend?
Well, think about the data trail we all leave. You have this bubbling cultural interest in age gap relationships. Maybe you've never explicitly searched for movies with older women and younger men, but maybe you clicked on a single news article about it on Facebook. Or maybe you watched a 2-minute scene from The Idea of You that someone posted on TikTok.
Or maybe you just paused for 3 extra seconds while scrolling past a thumbnail that happened to feature an older woman and a younger man. Just a hesitation.
That pause is data. That hesitation is a signal. Netflix's in-session algorithm detects that tiny flicker of curiosity. It logs it and says, aha. The user is open to this dynamic. The user is intrigued by this taboo. So boom, the next time you log in, Age of Attraction magically appears in your top picks for your row.
And because the thumbnails have all been ruthlessly optimized using neuromarketing data, the specific image I see is the one that is mathematically most likely to make me click.
And once you click, the dopamine hits. And because the show is cleverly branded as a social experiment, you feel smart and justified in watching it. It is a perfect self-reinforcing feedback loop.
That is, it's incredibly impressive and profoundly dystopian.
It's ruthlessly efficient. It connects supply with a demand that, in many cases, you didn't even know you had. It finds a subconscious curiosity and magnifies it.
So let's try to synthesize all of this. We've got the deep biology, the shifting culture, and the smart code. How does this all fit together into one big picture?
I think it's a feedback loop that is spinning faster and faster. At the base level, we have a messy, complicated, ancient biological drive attraction.
Yeah.
For millennia, that drive was channeled by social and economic necessity.
Right. But then we have a changing society, specifically women gaining economic power and independence, which fundamentally shifts the mating strategy from a quest for survival to a quest for self-expansion.
Women don't need a protector anymore. They want a partner who makes them feel alive, who challenges them, who helps them grow.
Exactly. And then, layered on top of all of that, we have the platform, Netflix in this case, that uses these incredibly sophisticated neural networks to detect that cultural shift in real time at an individual level. They see the data. They see us widening our age filters on dating apps. They see us clicking on articles about baby girl dynamics.
So they don't just observe the trend. They manufacture a product to capitalize on it.
They manufacture Age of Attraction. It isn't an accident. It's a conclusion based on 1 billion data points. It's engineered to serve the self-expansion desire of the audience, the desire to see older women as powerful and desirable, while also satisfying that primal, escapist craving of the brain for drama and dopamine.
And in doing so, the algorithm isn't just reflecting the cultural shift. It's validating it. It's accelerating it.
How is it accelerating it?
By serving this content to the exact right people at the exact right time, it normalizes the behavior. It takes the cougar stigma, which was a tool of social shame, and it rebrands it as a hot new romance trend. It moves it from the margins to the mainstream.
It kills the cougar stereotype by making her the heroine of the story.
Precisely. The algorithm is helping to kill the pejorative. And think of the downstream effects. Younger men are watching these shows and thinking, hey, that dynamic looks emotionally equitable and stable. That looks like a real partnership. Older women are watching it and thinking, I'm not expired. I'm just entering my prime. It changes our collective imagination of what's possible.
And Netflix is sitting right in the middle, collecting the subscription fees from both sides.
And the data. Always, always the data.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? You're sitting there, maybe you're thinking about watching this show next month. Maybe you're already in an age gap relationship.
I think the biggest takeaway is to just be aware of the forces at play. Be aware of why you are watching and why it was served to you. We've unpacked why the reverse age gap is on the rise. It's about women wanting growth, not just safety. We've unpacked why the stigma still persists. It's those evolutionary hangovers. And now we've unpacked how the machine detects that tension and feeds it back to you as entertainment.
It's a powerful reminder that our desires, our preferences, they aren't entirely our own. They're a complex cocktail of our DNA, our economic reality, and our recommendation engines.
And that is the final provocative thought I want to leave everyone with today.
Let's hear it.
If Netflix's algorithms can, with increasing accuracy, predict our in-the-moment intent better than we can articulate it ourselves, and if dating apps are seeing millions of users organically widen their age filters, are we, as a society, actually becoming more open-minded about love? Are we genuinely evolving past our old biases? Or are we just being skillfully nudged by algorithms that have learned we crave the productive discomfort of breaking taboos? Are we leading the change, or are we just following the digital breadcrumbs the algorithm has laid out for us? Exactly. Is this true liberation, or is it just a more personalized and profitable form of social engineering? And the biggest question of all is, what does the algorithm know about your subconscious desires that you haven't admitted to yourself yet?
Next time you open that app and you see that recommended for you row, take a good hard look. It might just know you better than you know yourself.
A scary thought to end on.
But a fascinating one. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening, and keep your eyes open. See you next time.